Hello, BookTube. Welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Glenn, and today I am doing a video that when I first started this channel about 6 or 7 months ago would have considered it extremely unlikely that I would ever do. And because I'm not a poetry guy. I don't get poetry. I don't know how many books I have on my shelves here at home. A lot. I have 2 spare bedrooms full of books. And until Monday of this week, not one of those books had anything to do with poetry. But I do want to take advantage of Poetry Thursday to talk a little bit about the poetry that I've read the last couple nights, the poetry book I got earlier this week, and why I decided to give poetry another chance, or give poetry a chance. And there have been a few influences in that direction. One, first, some of the channels that I follow, although they tend to focus more on fiction or nonfiction books, some of the channels I watch and subscribe to do feature poetry occasionally or weekly. And so I have at least indirectly or tangentially been sort of influenced by that. I know one of the channels I follow, Aaron Facer's channel, he does quite a bit of poetry, and I really like his channel. So there was at least a kind of an indirect, influence there. But I guess I started to think a little bit more about poetry just very recently. One of the reasons was a video that was done by Randy Ray at the Literate Texan. And I don't remember the title of the video offhand, but it had something to do with, it's not your fault if you think you don't like poetry. And his video was a case for changing your mind about poetry if you had been inclined to think that you aren't a poetry guy or a poetry person, that sometimes the way people have been taught or the way that people have encountered poetry has not always been the best way to encourage people to try and read poetry. And that video kind of coincided not long after when I saw just sort of a random post on Facebook by an acquaintance of mine who said words to the effect of, he's not really a poetry guy, but he picked up a book on poetry and he's kind of enjoying it. So, and I just, sometimes there are these things that just, these voices that sort of come at you from different directions that by themselves would not have had an effect, but because they came at you from different directions around the same time, sort of have the effect of kind of causing a little light bulb to go off in my brain. And kind of in a follow-up video, Randy Ray just kind of had an offhand comment about reading poetry at night. And kind of the cumulative effect of all those sort of voices was the thought that, maybe it would be good for me to try and read something that I wasn't trying to analyze, or that I wasn't reading for some other, that I was reading, like with a fiction novel, that I was reading out of a sense of trying to figure out the puzzle, or the intrigue or what have you. Just to read something, to just, hear another voice and to not judge it and to not try to analyze it or understand it and to just let it be. I think I don't really do that very well. And so this week I have ventured into very slowly and cautiously and carefully into the world of poetry. I don't know how it will go. And the book that I ended up picking up was Wendell Berry, New Collected Poems. And when I was at the bookstore on Monday, first I went there sort of intentionally to see what they had in the poetry section. And since I've never done that before, I wasn't sure where the poetry section was. But I did find it. And I looked at a couple volumes that were anthologies of, a whole range of poets, and they sort of, they had either had little sections, little mini biographies of the poets, and the anthology sort of started about how to read poetry and elements of poetry and all that, and those seemed like maybe good possible buys. But then my attention was directed to kind of more individual poets, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to pick up, but I picked up the Wendell Berry poems because another booktuber that whose videos I like a lot, Emily at M Reads, reads and talks a lot about Wendell Berry and her love for his work, even though I think a lot of those books have been Wendell Berry's fiction. I was still sort of drawn to this name, and pretty sure Wendell Berry is still alive. So I thought, well, that would at least be some somewhat modern poetry. So it wouldn't be something that I would be stumbling over, something that was too far long ago, and that the barriers to reading it and appreciating it would not be too hard. So, and I liked the feel of the book in my hand, and I liked how it was bound, and I just thought this was a good choice to get started. And so I have been doing a little bit of reading at night before I go to bed, just reading a few poems and not really judging them, and just sort of just trying to listen to them. Randy Ray recommends that one of the ways you can read poetry is you read it as if you're overhearing someone talk, next to you, maybe even in a restaurant or diner or something, or in a bookstore or anywhere that you're overhearing a conversation. So the expectation is pretty low for what you understand and what you what you take away. So let me see if I can let's look up a couple of examples of some poems that I read this week. I like animals. I like pets in general, and I'm one of the weird people that I like reptiles and I like snakes, and I have had snakes as pets. I don't currently have a pet snake at the moment, but one of Wendell Berry's poems is called The Snake. At the end of October, I found on the floor of the woods a small snake whose back was patterned with the dark of the dead leaves he lay on. His body was thickened with a mouse or small bird. He was cold, so stuporous with his full belly and the fall air that he hardly troubled to flicker his tongue. I held him a long time, thinking of the perfection of the dark marking on his back, the death that swelled him, his living cold. Now the cold of him stays in my hand, and I think of him lying below the frost, big with a death to nourish him during a long sleep. I just kind of liked the image of that, and that some elements of that might seem a little ghoulish to people, but I did maybe in the last year or two find a snake on a somewhat cooler fall morning who was apparently late to hibernation. And I picked him up. He was in a place that might not have been safe for him, so I picked him up and moved him a little far away to some grass. So I hope he got to safety and found an opportunity to hibernate. Oh boy, we have a guest. This is Tuesday, and no, I don't want you to come over here and knock my phone off of the tripod. You're not going to do that, are you? Okay. There is another poem. No, don't know. Go, please. Thank you. All right. Well, I am being interrupted by a cat that may want to go eat. And there was another poem I really wanted to read, and I wish I had marked these before I started my video, but yeah, I'm afraid that's how it goes sometimes. Here it is. It was just a few pages before the snake. This one's called My Great-Grandfather's Slaves. Deep in the back ways of my mind, I see them going in the long days over the same fields that I have gone long days over. I see the sun passing and burning high over that land from their day until mine, their shadows having risen and consumed them. I see them obeying and watching, the bearded tall man, whose voice and blood are mine, whose countenance in stone at his grave mine resembles, whose blindness is my brand. I see them kneel and pray to the white God who buys their souls with heaven. I see them approach, quiet in the merchandise of their flesh, to put down their burdens of firewood and hemp and tobacco into the minds of my kinsmen. I see them moving in the rooms of my history, the day of my birth entering the horizon emptied of their days, their purchased lives taken back into the dust of birthright. I see them born, shadow within shadow, shroud within shroud, through all nights, from their lives to mine, long beyond reparation or given liberty or any straightness. I see them go in the bonds of my blood, through all the time of their bodies. I have seen that freedom cannot be taken from one man and given to another, and cannot be taken and kept. I know that freedom can only be given and is the gift to the giver from the one who receives. I am owned by the blood of all of them, whoever were owned by my blood. We cannot be free of each other. Wendell Berry I believe is from Kentucky. And he, well, I understand of him, he once lived in New York City, but moved back to Kentucky. So it sounds like he is, that this poem is, was sort of his thoughts and imaginings of what life was like on the property of his great-grandfather who owned slaves. So I thought that was really interesting, and I think there are other poems that I have at least had some appreciation for, that I think would be appropriate to read, but I think I'm just going to let it go at that, and I will come back on another day and probably read from Wendell Berry's poems. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day and a good weekend. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.